Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1273B and today's date is May 7th, 2017 and the title of the episode is Something Big is About to Happen and this fake film might be part of it. Now before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. Yesterday I uploaded an interview with Michael Pinto. It is on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel, so all you need to do is go over to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight. It will bring you right to the video. Or you can come over to the X22Report.com site, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side, you'll see the video there. Or you can go to NewsSentinel.com, same thing, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side, and you can play the video right on the site. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, as we know, the Republicans, they pushed their health care plan through the House. They still have to push it through the Senate. And right now, they're saying, you know something? Let the Senate take their time because we want to do this right. Well, when we look at this health care bill, we know this is not right for the people. And the only way we'll really know that it's right for the people is if the entire government takes on this plan and they drop their health insurance. And I'm talking about the House, the Senate, the President, the Vice President, you name it, they need to drop what they have and take on this new health insurance. They didn't do it with Obamacare because they knew that, hey, I don't want this. But we can see there might be a strategy here. I don't know if the Republican health care plan is going to make it through the Senate. The Senate's saying that we're going to create our own health care plan, but this is not how it really works. But they're so desperate to stop this that they don't want this to move forward here. And I think one of the reasons why they're saying, hey, take your time with it, let's do it right, is because they know that Obamacare is dying right now. This might be part of their strategy because what we're seeing is that even in Iowa, in Maryland, there are a lot of insurance companies that are backing out of the system. We see out in Maryland, premiums are about to skyrocket. Maryland residents are looking at higher premiums right now. And the largest insurer, Care First Blue Cross Blue Shield, is requesting a 50% year-on-year premium increase. Now, the new rates would mean that a 40-year-old non-smoker in the Baltimore area would face premiums ranging from $359 a month to $715 before receiving any federal subsidies. Now, Care First said the rate increase are necessary because the company has lost $600 million serving Obamacare exchanges since the company first started selling plans in the marketplace 4 years ago. Now, remember how they designed Obamacare. The reason why there's a penalty is because when the insurance companies initially wrote this deal, this bill, they wanted to make sure that everyone was going to be in on their system. They needed a gigantic base of individuals buying their insurance. And the only way to force everyone into the system is to penalize people, where they said, oh, people don't want to get they don't want to be penalized, so they will opt in for health insurance because they rather have coverage. And what happened is that people said, you know something, I can't afford this coverage because, again, they weren't understanding what was going on in the United States where the economy was failing. And people decided to take the penalty because it was a lot cheaper. And as more and more people decided to opt out of the healthcare industry, well, this hurt the insurance companies. And they weren't able to make the profit they wanted to make because they thought they were going to have the entire country in on this health insurance. And they started to lose money. So they had to raise premiums. And it got worse and worse as time went on because what happened was the system was never designed to really help the people. It was designed to make the insurance companies very, very wealthy because most of the plans had huge deductibles where the insurance companies wouldn't even have to pay out. And the government paid subsidies on the poor. So there were no benefits really to the everyday person. Yes, a small group got some benefits while the rest of the nation, they were struggling. And about 8 million or so plus people decided to opt out. And that number is continually rising. And again, so far, I've seen nothing from the Republicans, nothing from the Democrats, nothing from government to say, hey, here is something that will benefit the people, because what they're giving us is pure junk. Now we see Trump's second nominee for Army Secretary. He decided to back out. This is Mark Green, and he was all for the Second Amendment. He decided that he's not going to go for this, so we'll have to wait to see who the other nominee is going to be. And we can see right now something must have occurred, because this is the second individual who didn't want to join on. Now, either he was blackmailed, something happened, but this is very curious on how these individuals are continually backing out of this. Now, virtually unnoticed by the majority of corporate media on Wednesday, in a hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee on the FBI's oversight of the investigation of Hillary Clinton's emails, Director James Comey revealed a murky effort as outlined in an undisclosed document by Attorney General Loretta Lynch or her associates to ensure that former presidential candidate would not be charged, and that's Hillary Clinton. And this document apparently reveals the thwarting by Lynch and associates of any effort to hold Clinton accountable. Now, Lynch intended to undertake a major effort to ensure Hillary Clinton would survive the crucial probe. The document, which has been described as both a memo and an email, was written by a Democratic operative who expressed confidence that Miss Lynch would keep the Clinton investigation from going too far, according to several former officials familiar with the document. And we've known this, that the Department of Justice at that time, Obama, the FBI, they were really doing absolutely nothing, even though WikiLeaks was pouring out all the emails showing that there was an unsecured server, it was wiped clean, and the Department of Justice didn't want to look into it at all. They weren't even curious of why this was happening. I mean, the whole thing sounded like a cover-up from the beginning. It still sounds like a cover-up, and now information is continually coming out, and we'll have to watch this to see how this turns out, because will they do anything? We'll have to wait and see. Now, with the election in France, we see Macron and Le Pen. They are now in the midst of the election, and there are exit polls, and right now the exit polls are saying that Macron has the lead. Now, again, we don't know if this is true. This is coming out of the corporate media, and sometimes what they do is they try to convince people that this candidate is in the lead, so more people go out and say, well, since that person's in the lead, let me vote for this person anyhow. They're going to win, and that will be that. But this election has seen a very low turnout right now of people coming out and voting. And we can see right now, I don't know if it's because the country is under state of emergency. Maybe it's because the Islamic State threatened to blow up polling stations. And I think the central bankers, the deep state, they wanted it this way. This way people wouldn't come out and vote for Le Pen, because they knew they couldn't manipulate the electronic voting systems, so they had to figure out another way. Now, one way is to count the votes in the back room where no one sees it, or try to keep people away from the polls and only bring those in that will vote for Macron. But we can see this is very close right now. This doesn't mean that Macron has won, and we'll have to wait to see how this turns out. We know that the deep state, they are pushing their agenda to get Macron into office. They want their man in there. Now, former president of Afghanistan, Hamid Karzai, he dropped a huge bombshell claiming that the U.S. created the Islamic State. Karzai says he holds the U.S. directly responsible for the funding and orchestration of terrorist events by the Islamic State, and claims that the Pentagon does this in order to further its Middle East agenda. Now, this is not really a surprise to all of us, that where we've been following this all along, and we know the United States government, the central bankers, the coalition forces, they support the terrorist groups, not just the Islamic State, but Al-Qaeda, Al-Sham, Boko Haram, and they use these terrorist groups to get their way, to push their agenda in each one of these countries. Now, his claims come just weeks after the Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard dropped a similar truth bomb, because she visited Syria, she spoke to the people there, and the people were explaining to her what was really going on. Now, with North Korea, we see there's more and more information coming out, and they're continually pushing the idea that North Korea is going to be attacking the United States. Kim Jong-un has also said that the CIA is planning to assassinate him, maybe have some type of chemical weapon attack inside of his country. We also see, coming out of the corporate media, that North Korea has arrested the fourth American. Now, they continually say this is coming out of North Korea's official Korean Central News Agency, and they're saying all these different quotes from Kim Jong-un is coming from this area. And when you go and you visit North Korea's official Korean Central News Agency, you don't see any stories about this whatsoever, at least none that I could find right now. And they're continually pushing the idea that they're continually arresting American after American after American, and the corporate media is pushing it out there. And one thing that I find very interesting, first of all, the Trump administration says they're aware of this. Secondly, we know the deep state, they've been trying to push their agenda out in North Korea. And it's just very interesting that Kim Jong-un would start arresting all these individuals at this point where the United States, China, Russia, Japan, and the rest of the surrounding countries are surrounding him. Why would he provoke the United States like this? It makes no sense, because we saw this type of propaganda before out in Syria with the Islamic State, where they were killing journalists, and they produced the videos, they put it out there, and of course it turns out to be fake, phony, and false. And the Islamic State was out there telling everyone, come and bomb us. Bring it. We're taking over Syria. Now we have the corporate media trying to tell us that North Korea is threatening the United States, threatening Japan, threatening China, and saying, listen, we will beat you, we will attack you. I mean, do we not see the parallels here? It looks like the deep state, once again, is using the same exact script. Now, out in Iran, we see the USS George H.W. Bush. This is an aircraft carrier. It is parked right off the coast of Iran. And Iran is sending out drones to basically look at and surveil the aircraft carrier. Now, officials are saying that this has become a nuisance, that this is naked aggression against the United States. U.S. officials have repeatedly made a big deal about Iran having ships off their own coast, while Iranian officials have responded by saying, don't you think a better question is, why is the U.S. warships 7,500 miles away from their own territorial waters and constantly looming around Iran's coast? Now, we have to remember, there's a warship right outside the Iranian coast sitting there. Can you imagine if Iran or Syria or North Korea had one of their ships right off the coast of California, New York, or Florida, and they were just sitting there? How would the United States respond to this? Well, we know how they would respond. Now, out in Syria, we see that Russia, Syria, Iran, Turkey, they've set up these safe zones, and residents in these areas are saying that the safe zones or the de-escalation zones, they are a good thing. One resident, Nasar Ahmad, said, we hope it will be a good omen to prevent the bloodshed of people. The government used to take care of everyone. The reconciliations are good for the situation we live in this country. Other residents, Ali Muhammad, expressed doubt about the rebels respecting the deal. I don't trust the terrorists whatsoever, for we saw nothing from them but deceit. Nevertheless, we are optimistic. Another resident said, and this is Mona Khalil, had similar opinions. The terrorists will not comply with the resolution, but we see the de-escalation zones. They are a good thing. And it looks like Russia, Iran, Syria, they're going to have to protect these areas, because we can see right now that one thing, the Syrian opposition, they said, oh, we're all for the de-escalation agreement, but we're not going to fulfill it. So they're not going to abide by the de-escalation zones. And we can see that the deep state, they don't want a safe zone de-escalation zone from Russia or Iran or Turkey. What they really want is their own safe zones where they can control it. And this is not going to work for them. And this is why we're looking at the situation where something big is about to happen. Because out in Syria, there are residents that say that there's filming going on of staged attacks with the use of poisonous substances. So the Russian media published an article alleging that Qatar-based television channel Al Jazeera, they were filming a staged attack in the settlements of Sarakeb, and they're saying, and this is in the Idlib province, saying that the footage was ordered from the European country. Now, the Russian Center for Reconciliation of Opposing Sides in Syria reported citing local residents that representatives from special video brigades made stage videos of consequences of an alleged chemical attack in Syria. Now, according to information from a number of sources among local residents, special video brigades carried out stage filming in the past week of the alleged consequences of shelling and airstrikes, including the use of poisonous substances. Now, the center added that some of the consultants of the brigades were recognized by the locals as cameramen shooting news in the region for Al Jazeera. Now, Al Jazeera, they have denied these allegations completely. And this is not the first time that such reports were out there, because there was another one on May 2nd saying that Mayadeen broadcasters reported, citing local news sources and eyewitnesses, that a group of White Helmets activists, accompanied by one of Arab satellite channels, arrived in the area near Idlib in Syria to shoot stage videos depicting consequences of a chemical attack. So something is happening here, and it looks like they're doing a lot of different filming in different areas to show that chemical weapons are being used. Now, we know that there could be a plan. There are reports that there's something going to happen very soon. And we can see that by these de-escalation zones that Russia, Iran, and Syria are setting up, this is a huge problem for the deep state. And most likely, they are probably setting up something really big right now to counter the de-escalation zones, because as these de-escalation zones most likely get larger and larger and encompass more of the country, this is going to be a huge problem for the deep state, because what's happening right now is that they're trying to separate the terrorists from the moderate rebels, the opposition group, and they're telling everyone that, listen, the terrorist groups, they will be destroyed if they try anything in these areas. And Russia, Iran, Syria, they are protecting these areas. And we understand that the deep state at this point, they're getting backed into the corner. There's no way out of them, and they're like wild animals. They're going to come out with their claws, and we can see that they're going to make one last push, because if they don't make this push, the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, the whole thing, well, it's done for. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.